Hello and welcome to Context. I'm Bakhtiar Asanov. Now we turn our focus to the South Caucasus, where tensions between the United States and Georgia's ruling Georgian Dream Party are escalating sharply. In a striking moment during a U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing on May the 21st, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio labeled the Georgian Dream government as anti-American, responding to concerns voiced by Congressman Joe Wilson. At the same hearing, Rubio also emphasized that Washington remains focused on efforts to prevent renewed conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia, highlighting the complexity of U.S. engagement in the region as strategic priorities intersect with growing concern about Georgia's internal political trajectory. What does this chilling of ties mean for Georgia's Euroatlantic aspirations? Could this realignment open new doors for Russia? And what are the broader implications for stability in the South Caucasus? To unpack this rapidly evolving picture, we are joined from Baku by Murad Muradov, co-founder and deputy director of Topçu Vashev Center, and Matthew Bryce, a former U.S. diplomat, joins us from Istanbul, Turkey. Mr. Muradov and Mr. Bryce, thank you both for joining us. It's great to have you on the program.
Thank you for the invitation so much. Thank you.
Ambassador Bryce, let's begin with Secretary Rubio's remarks. How significant is it that U.S. Secretary of State referred to the Georgian Dream government as anti-American?
I think it's very significant. In all of my decades working on the South Caucasus, no U.S. Secretary of State ever said anything like that. And, you know, there were very difficult times, even going back to the beloved Edward Shevardnadze days and all throughout the Georgian Dream period. Those words were never said. For a long time, U.S. leadership didn't want to undermine Georgia's chances for joining the transatlantic family. But now I think Secretary Rubio, having made that statement, he's showing enough is enough. Washington has been paying attention all the way through, and it's not going to treat the Georgian Dream government like a friendly government.
Mr. Muradov, what prompted this shift in tone from Washington? Was there a specific red line that Georgian Dream crossed, or has this been building for months?
Yeah, I definitely think that there has been a gradual deterioration process, which accelerated last November after the elections, which were considered rigged in many Western capitals. But since then, we've seen basically the high-level contact between the Tbilisi and major Western capitals have been cut, and the EU, for example, suspended Georgian accession process. Another interesting thing is that the current government definitely didn't expect this from the new Trump administration. Given certain, as they considered, certain cohesion in their worldviews and also the more conservative outlook of the new government, they probably expected to find a language with the administration. It didn't happen for reasons which I think we still have to explore.
Mr. Bryce, the Megalobar Act passed with bipartisan support. What does that signal about how united the U.S. political establishment is on Georgia right now?
Yeah, and so far, I guess it's only passed the House of Representatives, so it still needs to go to the Senate before it becomes a law, and then the president will have to decide whether or not to veto it. But he won't veto it. It will pass the Senate, I'm sure. So, yeah, your question answers itself. The fact that the Megalobar Act passed the House of Representatives in a bipartisan way with strong bipartisan support shows that to the extent people are paying attention, that this is a bipartisan issue. Now, to be honest, Georgia doesn't get that much attention in Washington these days. There's one very active member of the Congress, Representative Joe Wilson, who's the chair of the Helsinki Commission. He's the one that has made sure that people in the Congress are paying attention. And I know that for years, former Secretary of State Rubio, when he was, Secretary of State Rubio, when he was a senator, he did have a very strategic view toward the South Caucasus and how to deal with Russia. Yeah, this is bipartisan, and I think it's sending a powerful signal to the Georgian Dream government that it is no longer considered a friend of the United States and that there will be additional consequences.
So, Mr. Muradov, how is the Georgian Dream government interpreting and responding to these actions and statements from Washington?
Well, first of all, This events show that the government has failed to establish contacts with the new administration. And I know that they attempted to do that, and for various reasons it didn't happen. And it's interesting how the government has been always trying to somehow downplay the importance of the developments of the West. For example, until recently, they have been emphasizing that Georgia remains intent to pursue its integration with the EU, that it remains a pro-Western, pro-NATO country, despite all the economic problems. And honestly, this far, they prefer to use the open language when talking to the problems they now experience with the Western partners. For example, they would talk about some abstract part of war or some left rebel forces which are trying to destroy Georgian conservative values. At the same time, without any direct criticism of the key leaders. So probably this resolution, if it passes the Senate, and as Mr. Bryza said, most probably it will be some kind of red line after which Tbilisi will have to recognize that, the previous long-term friendship with the US is over, and they have to act in new circumstances and with new policies.
Ambassador Bryza, what do you think? Could this confrontation lead to actual U.S. sanctions on Georgian officials, and what impact would that have politically and economically?
Well, of course it could. Number one, there are already U.S. sanctions on Bidzina Ivanishvili, the founder and leader of Georgian Dream. Number two, the whole point of this act is to authorize and even require the President of the United States to apply sanctions to any Georgian official or other person who is determined by the same person, by the President of the United States, to have taken any actions that weaken the security of Georgia or undermine its aspirations to join the transatlantic family, meaning the European Union and NATO. So specifically, the whole point of the act is to provide the President of the United States the ability, the legal basis to apply such sanctions, and to encourage him to do so. And it also requires the President, meaning the executive branch, essentially the State Department, to investigate which Georgian officials may have been responsible for severe corruption or undermining Georgia's economy or security. So yeah, there will be sanctions.
So, Mr. Muradov, if Tbilisi continues to drift away from the West, could this open strategic opportunities for Russia or other actors?
I think Georgia has found itself in a very uncomfortable position. On one hand, yes, relations with the West seem to be spoiled once and for all, and it will take the whole recharge in order to call for a policy, to get at least partly back to the previous state of affairs. On the other hand, Tbilisi, even given all the attempts to soften up with Moscow, to develop a trade and to at least, let's say, a strong Russian investment in the country, the government remains restricted in the opportunities it has because of ongoing occupation of parts and cells by Russia. And, recent steps by Moscow, such as the opening of Sumy Airport, which was attended by one of the key figures in Russian politics, and also this emphasis on strengthening ties between Moscow and separatist republics. It shows that Moscow isn't going to command them back to Tbilisi as a gift for loyalty, as some people in Georgia may have hoped. And it means that, of course, with the public opinion very strongly positioned on the issues of sovereignty and territorial integrity of Georgia, this government cannot just pretend that Russia is a good partner and, restore their relations on a full scale. So basically, the country itself was isolated. And I don't know how they're going to basically pretend that their foreign policy strategy is going well.
Ambassador Bryza, what are your views on this matter?
Well, I think you raised a good question when you asked whether or not the support is bipartisan. It is. And I know from my own contacts in the White House, on the National Security Council staff, that they and President Trump was growing increasingly angry about the way the Georgian Dream government has been behaving, including by itself saying that essentially it was sabotaging Georgia's EU ambitions by postponing EU membership for several years, and that's what tipped off the big protests at the end of last year. So the Georgian Dream government has claimed publicly that this act is somehow the result of the so-called deep state in the United States, which, by the way, doesn't exist. I mean, I'm a former bureaucrat, a diplomat. I mean, there's no such thing as a deep state. They're just a bunch of civil servants who are committed to the national security of the United States. But in this case, it's the president's own team, and it's the Congress, the democratically elected leaders of Congress, who are pushing these potential sanctions against Georgian officials. So to call that the deep state is simply a lie and ridiculous. And it's quite sad because it shows that the Georgian Dream government is very nervous about this step by the United States Congress.
Mr. Muradov, I think that it's also a very important question. How is the Georgian public responding to this apparent deterioration in U.S.-Georgia relations?
Well, the Georgian public has been outraged since November. So at the protests, they have been flaring up and at some points rather receding, but still almost every weekend, at least a couple of thousand people still rallying the central Tbilisi, protesting against the government. And if we look at the major, most popular media and the expert community, most of them are at least let's say critical. And I'm sure that there is also a perception that the government may try to also accommodate Russia more in the light of the rising tensions with the West. And I mean, we know how negatively Georgian public views Russia. Even let's say those who are not very pro-Atlantic, still there is almost consensus that Russia is an occupying power. And in 2019, for example, attempt to bring Russian parliamentarians to Georgia, ended very badly for the government. With the famous Gavrilov night, with mass clashes with police. Also, 2 years ago, huge protests erupted after this so-called Russian foreign agent law was introduced. And I guess this latest development will cause a new wave of unrest in the streets, and also more people questioning the legitimacy of the government.
So, Ambassador Bryce, in your opinion, could these tensions jeopardize Georgia's long-standing Euro-Atlantic aspirations, particularly its NATO and EU bids?
I don't think the tensions will. I think the behavior of the Georgian Dream government has already done that. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned in my last response, it was the Georgian Dream Prime Minister who announced that the progress for Georgia to join the European Union is going to be halted for several years. People should remember that it was precisely then President Yanukovych's announcement in Ukraine that Ukraine was not going to proceed with its EU association agreement that led to the revolution of dignity or all the Maidan protests. So it's the Georgian Dream government that is taking its own steps to disqualify Georgia for joining either the European Union or NATO, while in reality over 80% of the Georgian electorate wants to join the European Union and wants to join NATO. So yes. Georgian Dream has tried to walk a very fine line, pretending that it is in favor of Georgia's membership in those transatlantic institutions, while taking actual steps that work against it. And so I think that the current tensions to which you refer over the new act, they show that the Georgian Dream approach is dishonest and won't work to help the Georgian people achieve their aspirations of joining NATO and the EU. On the contrary, is designed to achieve Russia's objective of Georgia not being integrated into those transatlantic institutions.
So do you see any realistic near-term scenario where U.S.-Georgia relations could stabilize or improve?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
I don't at the moment. It's this set of instances we're talking about now is sort of the metaphorical of U.S. throwing down the gauntlet showing Georgian Dream, okay, you want to take these steps, we are against you. And so until the Georgian Dream changes its approach so early in the Trump administration, we won't see the U.S. change its approach. So now the two governments are on a path of confrontation. And I don't think the Georgian Dream government is preparing to back down. So therefore, I don't see a way out. I think the relationship is just going to deteriorate.
Mr. Muradov, Secretary Rubio highlighted the risk of renewed conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. What are the current flashpoints that could reignite violence between Armenia and Azerbaijan?
I guess now the U.S. is now focused to achieve greater stability in the larger Middle East. So all the latest initiatives, Trump's opening up to Arab states, his attempts to pursue negotiations with Iran or the nuclear deal, and also recent attempts to to reduce tension in Gaza and to kind of bring the parties to a lasting ceasefire. It will show that I think Trump administration now considers the Middle East as a potential, let's say, source of trouble if all the multiple conflicts sources are not, let's say, treated well. And also, in the light of U.S.-China confrontation, I think it's important for Washington to let's say, collect points as a successful mediator and the peacemaker. So I think, Azerbaijan and Armenia is also viewed as contingent upon this larger process between Israel and Iran, and let's say Turkey and Israel, and I think in the eyes of the administration, say peace deal between Baku and Iran would be like a small but important step toward, let's say, a more stable region. And I don't see, let's say, Baku just accepting, let's say, this. I mean, if mediation momentarily. So probably, I mean, if US really wants to perform, let's say, as a peacebreaker, so Azerbaijan will, of course, would like to see also more American investment, and in general, so since the idea of having a bilateral track with Armenia has belonged to Azerbaijan, and so Baku use it as its big gain, and it's gonna exchange it for something really good.
Ambassador Bryce, what concrete steps is the United States taking to prevent a renewed outbreak of war in the region? Are these efforts mainly diplomatic, economic, or security-oriented?
The U.S. isn't taking any steps. It's decided it's up to Azerbaijan and Armenia to reach peace. The leader, especially in Azerbaijan, has said there's no need for a mediator. So the United States is, encouraging those negotiations to proceed. Otherwise, there was a visit by the special envoy of President Trump for everything practically. Witkoff was in Baku a few months ago. It's not entirely clear why he was there. I would presume it's because he wanted to try to nudge forward a peace agreement. The two sides are very close, as you know. They have been for 2 years now, very close. And now, Prime Minister. Well, it's been announced. Let's just say that the text has been finalized. And agreed. Now there's just the issue of the change in Armenia's constitution that Azerbaijan seeks, and that's an issue that only Armenia and Azerbaijan can work out. There's nothing the U.S. can do to work out that issue. So it's actually a good news story. The sides are very, very close to finalizing their peace treaty. Both leaders, both President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan, want that to happen. The U.S. will welcome that agreement. One other interesting fact or idea about why Witkoff may have visited Baku, there's been speculation that perhaps Azerbaijan might join the Abraham Accords. And Azerbaijan already has very good relations with Israel. It doesn't have an embassy, I guess, in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. But there's, the relationship of Azerbaijan to Israel, let's put it that way, is of significance to Washington.
Matthew Bryce, Muradov, thank you very much for this discussion. We truly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So thank you to our guests for their insights and to you, our viewers, for joining us. This has been Context. I'm Bakhtiar Sanov, and see you next time.